I'm Karima Brown. It's Sunday and it's time for The Fix. Welcome to this edition of The Fix, where every Sunday we hold those in power to account. We tell you what matters, how it affects you, and why you should care. Are political parties opportunistically trying to hijack the legitimate safety and security concerns of vulnerable communities in South Africa's rural heartland? Media attention has been focused on a small town of Senekal following the death of a 21-year-old farm manager and the subsequent violent protests by farmers. Joining me to look at this issue is AgriSA's Christo van der Rede, AfriForum's Kali Kriel. Also part of the conversation is Nosy Petersen from the Black Association of the Agricultural Sector, as well as Gefildin Benjamin from the Agricultural, Food, Fishing and Retail Industry Workers Union. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me here on The Fix. Nosy, let me start with you. We saw quite a lot of posturing on the side of the EFF, various protest groups from the African National Congress to organised farmers, AfriForum, some brandishing guns, others knob kiddies. From where you're sitting, were political parties and interest groups trying to take advantage of the security concerns following the murder of the farm manager in Senekal?
It is blatantly obvious, Karima, and thank you for having me, that they were exploiting the heartache and pain of a family. And that, for me, is really an evil and wicked approach that they have displayed, and for all the country to see. If you look, for example, I've never seen Helen Zille, for example, standing here with us, with placards against gender-based violence. We have never seen her with placards demonstrating against those who die at the hands of gangsters on the Cape Flats and in Port Elizabeth. So clearly, I don't know why this is now taking center stage, because all of us have been made in the image of God, irrespective of our status and social standing. Coloureds dying at the hands of gangsters, gender-based violence with all its victims, and farmers. All these lives matters, and one should not be placed or have a special focus like now is the case, with a special focus on these farmers.
Okay, Nosy, hold that thought. Let me bring in Gefildin here. Gefildin, you work with farm workers, and often the plight of farm workers go completely unnoticed. They are among the most marginalized in our society. When you saw all of these formations, congregate on the small town of Senekal, do you think that they were trying to exploit, the very real security concerns of people in communities such as Senekal?
Yeah, good afternoon, Karima. First, let me say my condolences on behalf of workers to the family of the farm manager, Brendan Horner, but all the other farmers, as well as farm workers who have lost their lives through violence on farms, and in a way that the untimely deaths, or how they met the untimely deaths. It's very unfortunate. What we saw in Senekal was pure political populism. It was opportunistic. It was a show of force, and it was in no way a means to protect our democracy, our constitution, and the judiciary. So some of the other people that came out to represent the farmers also showed a total lack of disrespect in terms of how they conveyed their message.
All right, let me bring in Mr. Kali Kriel. Kali, you are from AfriForum. You have consistently highlighted this issue. You have politicized it in many ways, saying farmers are being attacked as a constituency. When you saw what was happening in Senekal, particularly farmers rocking up armed with, revolvers in their holsters and so on, and some even in former South African Defence Force clothing, do you think that those groups were in fact trying to exploit the death of the farm manager there for narrow political purposes?
Thank you, Karima. Maybe I should just start off by saying to ask government to make farm murders a priority and to take action is not politicizing the issue. It's actually you taking a stance for the human rights and dignity of both workers and farmers on farms that are being targeted through violence. So what we've done is not politicizing it, but putting it on the agenda. With regard to what we've seen there, I think the vast majority of farmers, and Chris would know, he's got many members there, are peaceful people that are angry with regard to farm murders, but they can show their anger in a very organized, peaceful way. And they want to play a constructive role. What we've seen there, people say the farmers, those people you saw there on Friday with uniforms, giving themselves ranks, army ranks, they're not farmers. The EFF that went there, they're not farmers. The people they got there, they gave T-shirts and pies to be there. The real farmers that were there, that were part of our group, were people that said, we are fed up with farm murders. But we also organized a specific terrain because we knew there would be people from the lunatic fringe from both sides going there to make it actually a battleground. So we had a specific terrain that we said, we're going to control this. We're not going to allow any form of hate speech. And I think that showed people there's a third way. You can show that you want something to be done about farm murders without engaging into violence. And we are fortunate that we were able to do that on Friday, while a few fringe figures and the EFF actually did the opposite.
Crystal, let me bring you in. You are from AgriSA, and of course, you are the big commercial player in this field. What Kali and both Gafildin and Nosy were talking about was political organizations who have very little presence in those rural communities, rocking up there and claiming to speak on behalf of those people. Your members were there. Why were you not more visible? Why were you not able to tell those who came with old SANDF clothing, those with weapons, to say this is not how we actually want to protest, and also perhaps begin to change the language? We're talking about farm murders. There are many communities that live in rural communities. Not everyone lives on a farm who lives in the rural areas. Should we not be talking about rural safety?
Indeed. AgriSA has a rural safety center of excellence. Our focus is on how do we safeguard communities, and I'll come to that later on. First and foremost, Brendan Horner was a farm worker. He wasn't a farmer. And secondly, crime in South Africa is a massive problem. It has a devastating impact on all of our communities. And yes, as a farming organization, we specifically focus on the safety of farmers and farm workers. So what did we do? We had a big meeting with the police minister a few days before that. AgriSA's affiliation, Agri-Free State, was asked to liaise with the police because they're on the ground. We sit in Pretoria. For me to go there and try to organize things will not be really helpful. And then secondly, the Boerevereniging, in other words, the rural farming union, on the ground, they made it very clear. They don't want people to come and have any kind of protest there and to utilize it for political purpose and cheap political point scoring. Now, what did we do? The previous day, AgriSA's president made it very clear that we cannot deny people the right to protest, but we really advise people not to go there and then become embroiled in any form of conflict. And we called for calm and we called for respect for the court proceedings, because we want the Brent Horner's family to get justice for what has happened to a dear family member. And then, very importantly, I was on every news channel to ask everyone that go there to refrain from violence, refrain from inciting any form of conflict. And then thirdly, what we've also said is that we have had very constructive meetings with the police commissioner, with the police minister, the police or the minister responsible for safety and security, and there is no necessity to go there and cause any form of havoc.
Okay, you know, we are going to be discussing a lot of the drivers of crime in the rural areas and the patent, disregard that we get from the police to look at rural safety. I did ask Minister Becky Cele to participate in this program. He had a prior engagement, unfortunately. Nosy, let me bring you in here. The question of, safety in rural communities is, of course, a very big issue. From what conditions are like on farms for workers. But whenever we talk about farming communities, there's this kind of racial lens that is used to look at these communities. And of course, that is as a consequence not just of our history, but also ongoing inequalities. How do you, as someone who work with not just, farmers in general, but particularly black farmers, how do you bring to the fore the fact that there is virtually no security strategy for rural communities, and that black farmers are often, victims of the strategy, the lack of a plan, rather, to deal with crime as well?
Karima, you in fact spot on in terms of what you are saying. If you look at the situation, this is very disingenuous of the farming community to all of a sudden now include farm workers in this. You will remember before that was referred to as white genocide that they were talking about, and it is only after at a meeting of these farmers on the 14th of June, I think it's 2018, with the former National Commissioner Paslanhla, where I said to ask them whether this farm killings and farm murders that you are talking about, does this include farm workers who died directly and indirectly at the hands of farmers? Whether they include that. Now I see they have included farm workers as such. Farm workers in the main, there is white farm workers, of course, but farm workers in the main is made up of the blacks of our country. And when you look at what is happening, when truckloads of farm workers illegally loaded past the traffics, they are not being stopped. The traffic cop don't stop them at all. They die in these trucks of death. By the hundreds they have died by now. We don't see any conclusion. We never hear in the media what was the final conclusion of that case. Sometimes we hear that the driver was found guilty, but the farmer is just as responsible for that. Nothing has happened unto him. Many farm workers have died on the farm, but nothing has happened to this effect. I give you an example, David Conradi from Rishi's Baan there in Hessequa. He died on the 29th of April 2015. 9 months later, his parents did not even have a death certificate. And at the police station, there was a file with only one piece of paper in, Riversdale Police Station. A file with only one piece of paper, and that was the details of his mother. We are only fighting now to get that case in court, and now we hear that there's going to be a post-mortem soon. 29th of April 2015. That is the kind of attention Black Death farm workers get, rural community people get when they approach the security forces. I tell you, people of color don't feature in safety, security in the rural areas. You go and see the drug situation there, how they have infiltrated the rural communities. There is now drug houses and drug lords in our rural communities. You can go in Lensburg. I've went to the police and talked to them about it. You can go to Toes River. All these rural communities that were so peaceful, they are now plagued by gangsterism and drug lords.
Okay, Nosy, hold that thought. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we will continue this conversation and, of course, unpack the very many drivers of why crime is out of control in South Africa's rural heartland. Stay with us.